Section 74 Vaisampayana said, after Dushmanta had left the asylum, having made those promises unto Sakuntala, the latter of tapering thighs brought forth a boy of immeasurable energy. And when the child was 3 years old, he became in splendor like the blazing fire. And O Janamejaya, he was possessed of beauty and magnanimity and every accomplishments. And that first of virtuous men, Kanva, caused all the rites of religion to be performed in respect of that intelligent child, thriving day by day. And the boy, gifted with pearly teeth and shining looks, capable of slaying lions even then, with all auspicious signs in his palm and broad expansive forehead, grew up in beauty and strength, and like unto a celestial child in splendor, he began to grow up rapidly. And when he was only 6 years of age, endued with great strength, he used to seize and bind to the trees that stood around that asylum lions and tigers and bears and buffaloes and elephants. And he rode on some animals and pursued others in sportive mood. The dwellers at Kanva's asylum thereupon bestowed on him a name, and they said, because he seizes and restrains all animals, however strong, let him be called Sarvadhamana, the subduer of all. And it was thus that the boy came to be named Sarvadhamana, endued as he was with prowess and energy and strength. And the Rishi, seeing the boy and marking also his extraordinary acts, told Sakuntala that the time had come for his installation as the heir apparent. And beholding the strength of the boy, Kanva commanded his disciples, saying, bear without delay this Sakuntala with her son from this abode to that of her husband, blessed with every auspicious sign. Women should not live long in the houses of their paternal or maternal relations. Such residence is destructive of their reputation, their good conduct, their virtue. Therefore, delay not in bearing her hence. These disciples of the Rishi thereupon, saying, so be it, went towards the city named after an elephant, Hastinapura, with Sakuntala and her son ahead of them. And then she of fair eyebrows, taking with her that boy of celestial beauty, endued with eyes like lotus petals, left the woods where she had been first known by Dushmanta. And having approached the king, she with her boy resembling in splendor, the rising sun was introduced to him, and the disciples of the Rishi, having introduced her, returned to the asylum. And Sakuntala, having worshipped the king according to proper form, told him, this is thy son, O king, let him be installed as thy heir apparent. O king, this child, like unto a celestial, hath been begotten by thee upon me. Therefore, O best of men, fulfill now the promise thou gavest me. Call to mind, O thou of great good fortune, the agreement thou hadst made on the occasion of thy union with me in the asylum of Kanva. The king hearing these words and remembering everything said, I do not remember anything. Who art thou, O wicked woman in ascetic guise? I do not remember having any connection with thee in respect of dharma, kama and arthas. Go or stay or do as thou pleasant. Thus addressed by him, the fair-colored innocent one became abashed. Grief deprived her of consciousness, and she stood for a time like a wooden post. Soon, however, her eyes became red like copper, and her lips began to quiver, and the glances she now and then cast upon the king seem to burn the later. Her rising wrath, however, and the fire of her asceticism, she extinguished within herself by an extraordinary effort. Collecting her thoughts in a moment, her heart possessed with sorrow and rage, she thus addressed her lord in anger, looking at him. Knowing everything, O monarch, how canst thou like an inferior person? Thus say that thou knowest it not. Thy heart is a witness to the truth or falsehood of this matter. Therefore speak truly without degrading thyself. He who being one thing represent himself as another thing to others, he is like a thief and a robber of his own self. Of what sin is he not capable? Thou thinkest that thou alone hast knowledge of thy deed. But knowest thou not that the ancient, omniscient one, Narayana, lived in thy heart? He knoweth all thy sins, and thou sinnest in his presence. He that sins thinks that none observes him, but he is observed by the gods, and by him also who is in every heart. The sun, the moon, the air, the fire, the earth, the sky, the water, the heart, Yama, the day, the night, both twilights and dharma, all witness the acts of man. Yama, the son of Surya, takes no account of the sins of him with whom Narayana, the witness of all acts, is gratified. But he with whom Narayana is not gratified is tortured for his sons by Yama. Him who degrades himself by representing himself falsely, the gods never bless. Even his own soul bless him not. I am a wife devoted to my husband. I have come of my own accord, it is true, but do not on that account treat me with disrespect. I am thy wife, and therefore deserve to be treated respectfully. Wilt thou not treat me so? Because I have come either of my own accord, in the presence of so many, why dost thou treat me like an ordinary woman? I am not certainly crying in the wilderness. Dost thou not hear me? But if thou refuse to do what I supplicate thee for, O Dushmanta, thy head this moment shall burst into 100 pieces. The husband entering the womb of the wife come out himself in the form of the sun. Therefore is the wife called by those cognizant of the Vedas as Jaya, she of whom one is born, and the son that is so born unto persons cognizant of the Vedic mantras rescued the spirits of deceased ancestors. And because the son rescued ancestors from the hell called Put, therefore hath been called by the self-create himself as Putra, the rescuer from Put. By a son one conquered the three worlds, by a son's son one enjoy eternity, and by a grandson's son great-grandfathers enjoy everlasting happiness. She is a true wife who is skillful in household affairs. She is a true wife who hath borne a son. She is a true wife whose heart is devoted to her Lord. She is a true wife who knoweth none but her Lord. The wife is a man's off. The wife is the first of friends. The wife is the root of religion, profit and desire. The wife is the root of salvation. They that have wives can perform religious acts. They that have wives can lead domestic lives. They that have wives have the means to be cheerful. They that have wives can achieve good fortune. Sweet-speeched wives are friends on occasions of joy. They are as fathers on occasions of religious acts. They are mothers in sickness and woe, even in the deep of woods. To a traveler, a wife is his refreshment and solace. He that hath a wife is trusted by all. A wife, therefore, is one's most valuable possession. Even when the husband, leaving this world, goeth into the region of Yama, it is devoted wife that accompanies him thither. A wife going before waits for the husband. But if the husband goeth before, the chaste wife followeth close. For those reasons, O king, doth marriage exist. The husband enjoyed the companionship of the wife, both in this and in the other worlds. It hath been said by learned persons that one is himself born as one's sons. Therefore, a man whose wife hath borne a son should look upon her as his mother. Beholding the face of the son, one hath begotten upon his wife, like his own face in a mirror. One feeleth as happy as a virtuous man on attaining to heaven. Men scorched by mental grief or suffering under bodily pain feel as much refreshed in the companionship of their wives as a perspiring person in a cool bath. No man, even in anger, should ever do anything that is disagreeable to his wife, seeing that happiness, joy, and virtue, everything depends on the wife. A wife is the sacred field in which the husband is born himself. Even rishis cannot create creatures without women. What happiness is greater than what the father feels when the son running towards him, even though his body be covered with dust, clasps his limbs? Why then dost thou treat with indifference such a son who hath approached thee himself and who cast wistful glances towards thee for climbing thy knees? Even hands support their own eggs without destroying them. Then why shouldst not thou, virtuous as thou art, support thy own child? The touch of soft sandal paste of woman of cool water is not so agreeable as the touch of one's own infant son locked in one's embrace. As a Brahmana is the foremost of all bipeds, a cow the foremost of all quadrupeds, a protector, the foremost of all superiors, so is the sun, the foremost of all objects, agreeable to the touch. Let therefore this handsome child touch thee in embrace. There is nothing in the world more agreeable to the touch than the embrace of one's son. One chastist, O chastiser of foes, I have brought forth this child, O monarch, capable of dispelling all thy sorrows. After bearing him in my womb for full 3 years, O monarch of Puru's race, ye shall perform 100 odd sacrifices. These were the words uttered from the sky when I was in the laying room. Indeed, men going into places removed from their homes take up their others' children on their laps, and smelling their heads felt great happiness. Thou knowest that Brahmanas repeat these Vedic mantras on the occasion of the consecrating rites of infancy. Thou art born, O son of my body, thou art sprung from my heart, thou art myself in the form of son. Live thou to 100 years. My life dependeth on thee, and the continuation of my race also on thee. Therefore, O son, live thou in great happiness to 100 years. He hath sprung from thy body, this second being from thee. Behold thyself in thy son, as thou beholdest thy image in the clear lake. As the sacrificial fire is kindled from the domestic one, so hath this one sprung from thee. Thou hast divided thyself in course of hunting, while engaged in pursuit of the deer. I was approached by thee, O king. I was then a virgin in the asylum of my father. Urvashi, Purvachitti, Sahajanya, Menaka, Vishwachi, and Gritachi. These are the 6 foremost of Apsaras. Amongst them again Menaka, born of Brahman, is the first, descending from heaven on earth. After intercourse with Vishwamitra, she gave birth to me. that celebrated Apsara, Menaka, brought me forth in a valley of Himavat, bereft of all affection. She went away, cast me there as if I was the child of somebody else. What sinful act did I do of old in some other life, that I was in infancy cast away by my parents, and at present am cast away by thee, put away by thee. I am ready to return to the asylum of my father, but it behoveth thee not to cast off this child who is my own. Hearing all this, Dushmanta said, O Sakuntala, I do not know, having begotten upon thee this son. Women generally speak untruths. Who shall believe in thy words? Destitute of all affection, the livid Menaka is thy mother, and she cast thou off on the surface of Himavat, as one throws away after the worship is over the flowery offering made to his gods. Thy father too of the Kshatriya race, the lustful Vishwamitra, who was tempted to become a Brahmana, is destitute of all affection. However, Menaka is the first of Apsaras, and thy father also is the first of Rishis. Being their daughter, why dost thou speak like a livid woman? Thy words deserve no credit. Art thou not ashamed to speak them, especially before me? Go hence, O wicked woman, in ascetic guise. Where is that foremost of great rishis? Where also is that Apsara, Menaka? And why art thou, low as thou art, in the guise of an ascetic? This child too is grown up. Thou sayest he is a boy, but he is very strong. How hath he soon grown like a sala sprout? Thy birth is low. Thou speakest like a livid woman. Lustfully hast thou been begotten by Menaka, O woman of ascetic guise. All that thou sayest is quite unknown to me. I don't know thee. Go with earsoever thou choose. Sakuntala replied, Thou seest, O king, the fault of others, even though they be as small as a mustard seed. But seeing thou noticest not thy own faults, even they be as large as the bilva fruit. Menaka is one of the celestials. Indeed, Menaka is reckoned as the first of celestials. My birth therefore, O Dushmanta, is far higher than thine. Thou walkest upon the earth, O king, but I roam in the skies. Behold, the difference between ourselves is as that between the mountain Meru and a mustard seed. Behold my power, O king. I can repair to the abodes of Indra, Kuvera, Yama, and Varuna. The saying is true, which I shall refer to before thee. O sinless one, I refer to it for example's sake and not from evil motives. Therefore it behoveth thee to pardon me after thou hast heard it. An ugly person considereth himself handsomer than others until he sees his own face in the mirror. But when he sees his own ugly face in the mirror, it is then that he perceives the difference between himself and others. He that is really handsome never taunts anybody, and he that always talketh evil become a reviler, and as the swine always look for dirt and filth even when in the midst of the flower garden, so the wicked always choose the evil out of the both evil and good that others speak. Those, however, that are wise, on hearing the speeches of others that are intermixed with both good and evil, accept only what is good, like geese that always extract the milk only, though it be mixed with water. As the honest are always pained at speaking ill of others, so do the wicked always rejoice in doing the same thing. As the honest always feel pleasure in showing regard for the old, So do the wicked always take delight in expressing the good. The honest are happy with not seeking for faults. The wicked are happy in seeking for them. The wicked ever speak ill of the honest, but the latter never injure the former. Even if injured by them, what can be more ridiculous in the world than that those that are themselves wicked should present the really honest as wicked, when even atheists are annoyed with those that have fallen off from the truth and virtue, and who are really like hungry snakes of virulent poison. What shall I say of myself, who am nurtured in faith, he that having begotten a son, who is his own image, regardeth him not, never attains to the worlds he coveteth. And verily the gods destroy his good fortune and possessions. The Pitris have said that the son continued the race and the line, and is therefore the best of all religious acts. Therefore none should abandon a son. Manu hath said that there are 5 kinds of sons: those begotten by one's self upon his own wife, those obtained as gift from others, those purchased for a consideration, those reared with affection, and those begotten upon other women, then upon wedded wives. Sons support the religion and achievements of men, enhance their joys, and rescue deceased ancestors from hell. It behoveth thee not, therefore, O tiger among kings, to abandon a son who is such. Therefore, O Lord of earth, cherish thy own self, truth, and virtue by cherishing thy son. O lion among monarchs, it behoveth thee not to support this deceitfulness. The dedication of a tank is more meritorious than that of 100 wells. A sacrifice, again, is more meritorious than the dedication of a tank. A son is more meritorious than a sacrifice. Truth is more meritorious than 100 sons. 100 horse sacrifices had once been weighed against truth, and truth was found heavier than 100 horse sacrifices. O king, truth, I ween, may be equal to the study of the entire Vedas and ablutions in all holy places. There is no virtue equal to truth. There is nothing superior to truth. O king, truth is God himself. Truth is the highest vow. Therefore, violate not thy pledge. O monarch, let truth and thee be even united. If thou place no credit in my words, I shall of my own accord go hence. Indeed, thy companionship should be avoided. But thou, O Dushmanta, that when thou art gone, this son of mine shall rule the whole earth, surrounded by the 4 seas, and adorned with the king of the mountains. Vaisampayana continued. Sakuntala, having spoken to the monarch in this wise, left his presence. But as soon as she had left, a voice from the skies, emanating from no visible shape, thus spoke unto Dushmanta, as he was sitting surrounded by his occasional and household priests, his preceptors and ministers. And the voice said, the mother is but the sheath of flesh. The son sprung from the father is the father himself. Therefore, O Dushmanta, cherish thy son and insult not Sakuntala. O best of men, the son who is but a form of one's own seed. Rescue the ancestors from the region of Yama. Thou art the progenitor of this boy. Sakuntala hath spoken the truth. The husband, dividing his body in twain, is born of his wife in the form of son. Therefore, O Dushmanta, cherish, O monarch, thy son born of Sakuntala. To live by forsaking one's living son is a great misfortune. Therefore, O thou of Puru's race, cherish thy eye-souled son, born of Sakuntala, and because this child is to be cherished by thee, even at our word, therefore shall this thy son be known by the name of Bharata, the cherished. Hearing these words uttered by the dwellers in heaven, the monarch of Puru's race became overjoyed and spoke as follows unto his priests and ministers. Hear ye these words uttered by the celestial messenger. I myself know this one to be my son. If I had taken him as my son on the strength of Shakuntala's words alone, my people would have been suspicious, and my son also would not have been regarded as pure. Vaisampayana continued, the monarch then, O thou Bharata's race, seeing the purity of his son established by the celestial messenger, became exceedingly glad, and he took unto him that son with joy, and the king with the joyous heart, then performed all those rites upon his son that a father should perform, and the king smelt his child's head and hugged him with affection, and the Brahmanas began to utter blessings upon him, and the bards began to applaud him, and the monarch then experienced the great delight that one feeleth at the touch of one's son, and Dushmanta also received that wife of his with affection, and he told her these words, pacifying her affectionately, O goddess, my union with thee took place privately. Therefore, I was thinking of how best to establish thy purity. My people might think that we were only lustfully united, and not as husband and wife. And therefore, this son that I would have installed as my heir apparent would only have been regarded as one of impure births. And dearest, every hard word thou hast uttered in thy anger, have I, O large-eyed one, forgive thee. Thou art my dearest. And the royal sage Dushmanta, having spoken thus unto his dear wife, O Bharata, received her with offerings of perfume, food and drink, and King Dushmanta then bestowed the name of Bharata upon his child and formally installed him as the heir apparent, as the famous and bright wheels of Bharata's car, invincible and like up to the wheels of the cars owned by the gods, traversed every region, filling the whole earth with their rattle, and the son of Dushmanta reduced to subjection all kings of the earth, and he ruled virtuously and earned great fame, and that monarch of great prowess was known by the titles of Chakravarti and Sarvabhauma, and he performed many sacrifices like Sakra, the lord of the Maruts, and Kanva was the chief priest at those sacrifices, in which the offerings to Brahmanas were great, and the blessed monarch performed both the cow and the horse sacrifices. And Bharata gave unto Kanva 1,000 gold coins as the sacerdotal fees. It is that Bharata from whom have emanated so many mighty achievements. It is from him that the great race called after him in his race are called after him. And in the Bharata race there have been born many gold-like monarchs, gifted with great energy, and like unto Brahman himself. Their number cannot be counted. But O thou of Bharata's race, I shall name the principal ones that were blessed with great good fortune, like unto the gods, and devoted so truth and honesty. Thus ends the 74th section in the Sambhava Parva of the Adi Parva.